Hi everyone, my name is Carol Richard. I am the founder of the Sleep Success Academy. And in this video, I wanted to talk about the term emotional flashbacks. I know myself included in the past, I would think of an emotional flashback, and what would come to my mind would be that, oh, that's only for people who have PTSD or complex PTSD. And I didn't really understand that everybody has emotional flashbacks all the time. And our emotional flashbacks can actually be positive, supportive, or they can be negative and unsupportive. And that's what I want to share in this video today. So keep in mind that I am not a therapist. I'm not a psychologist. I'm not a mental health professional. I am a sleep coach and I love reading books. And I'm also trained as an emotional success coach, a transformational coach. But my focus is really on sleep. And I love helping sleep deprived individuals find ways of understanding what gets in the way of their sleep, because everybody will have a different reason. And when it comes to the term emotional flashbacks, just the thought of going to bed and having had so many poor nights of sleep can bring on what I would call an emotional flashback, because we're flashing back to all those nights where we couldn't sleep. And it causes a biological reaction in our nervous system, in our body, and it brings up all the emotions of dread, fear, anxiety, and is not positive or supportive to our sleep. But at the same time, I would say now that my emotional flashbacks when I think about sleep are very supportive, because when 8 o'clock comes at night, I don't go to bed at 8, but by 8 o'clock, I get so excited and I'm like winding down. I'm listening to quiet music. I might be reading something. I might be doing some puzzle. I might be having conversation with my husband, but it's my last hour to 2 hours awake before bed. And my emotional flashbacks are so positive because it's like, I know I'm going to get a good night's sleep. I'm content. I'm feeling joy. You see how they are both an emotional flashback, but one of them is very positive while the other one is not. And so I want you to start thinking about emotional flashbacks in that way. And so in this video, I'm going to share a story to kind of explain this a little more from a book, what happened to you. And I'm also going to share a personal experience of how something like a ring, you'll see I have a hug ring on my finger, can also bring emotional flashbacks. And then the third part of the video I want to share is how you can help yourself through these emotional flashbacks so that you can then get better sleep. So first, the story in the book. This is where I started my understanding that flashbacks could be positive or negative, because they're the guy who wrote the book, Bruce Perry. So he wrote it with Oprah Winfrey. It's a really good book. I listened to it on audio the first time, and then I bought the hard copy. So I haven't really read the hard copy, but I listened to it on Audible. And one of the stories that stuck out to me was this kid who they had in their group home, I believe. So this was a year ago, so I might not get the details perfectly, but it's not about the details. It's about the flashback part that I want you to understand. So this kid in the group home was doing really well. And he had been there for a few years, I believe, and he did well. So they were at the point where they could move him up a grade in school. So school was attached to this group home. And when he got into with his new teacher, who was male, he started acting out again, and they didn't understand what was happening. And so they were trying to work with him. So Bruce Perry was actually his therapist, and he writes the story in the book. And so what happened one day is his father came to visit, and Bruce Perry went with them to be the chaperone at this visit. And what Bruce noticed as the boy and the father were talking, he started daydreaming because the father was wearing an aftershave. I think it was Old Spice. Again, the details are not important. And he started daydreaming about his own childhood, about how his father used to wear that aftershave or that cologne, and positive memories of his childhood and going fishing with his father and how supportive his father was. And so he was having a flashback in that moment, but an emotional flashback because he was feeling all the emotions, but they were all positive. When he snapped out of that, And then he looked over at the boy. He realized the boy, his behavior was quite rigid. He could tell something was not right. And as he walked over to the table to kind of just see how things were going, he noticed that the father had an alcohol smell underneath the aftershave. So the father had been drinking before visiting his boy. And then Bruce Perry was like, okay, so just that was a situation. But afterward, when he walked into the teacher's classroom, the psychologist, he recognized that the teacher was wearing the same aftershave. And so he did an experiment where he asked the teacher to not wear that aftershave and see if the boy's behavior would change. Now, I'm assuming they also did therapy, they did all this other stuff. But while Bruce Perry had a positive emotional flashback, remembering his childhood, this boy had a negative emotional flashback because we can just assume if his father was drinking when he came to visit him, what kind of childhood he would have had. So here's an example of one person, right, the father, causing a flashback in two people, but it being different. And I share that because we can have that different emotional flashback when it comes to our sleep, when it comes to our to-do list, when it comes to quiet time, when it comes to our work, when it comes to an argument we had with our better half, anything, when it comes to the amount of, like, just so many things that we can flash back to, and it can be positive or negative. And none of it is right or wrong, but it's just how are we going to manage this so we can get better sleep? So to give you another example of flashbacks, how they can be positive or negative, let's talk about this ring that I'm wearing. People that know me in my personal life, they will know that I'm someone who loves giving hugs. I have been known as the hugger, like Carol, hugs are so awesome. Friends of mine will actually hug the way I do because I only ever hug on the right side. So heart to heart. I refuse to hug the other way because if I'm going to put my energy into a hug, I want you to feel the love. So it's heart to heart. And I am known for that. I sign all my messages, hugs, Carol, like I just love hugs. So this Christmas, my husband buys me a present and he buys me a hug ring. So you see, it's like, and his thought was to give me a hug ring because I hug him at least 20 times a day. And he was like, well, even when you're not hugging me, you can feel hugged by me. So how sweet, right? So we've been together at 29 years. So I met him when I was 20. And when I look at this ring, it brings me back to an emotional flashback. I was just thinking about that this morning, how looking at the ring puts a smile on my face. I remember when we met when I was 20 years old. We were at this dance club and the slow song came on, and we had only been dating a few months. And I still see it. He does not speak French, and he had asked a friend of mine to teach him French because French is my first language. And he had said in his very bad English tone, Je suis amoureux de toi, which still brings me joy because he took a step into wanting to express how he felt about me. And so it's a very positive emotional flashback with this ring. See? However, it could also bring a negative emotional flashback. And this is a personal share from my home life. Growing up, I was never hugged. My family are not huggers. And so I could look at this ring and it could bring up the feeling of not being hugged, not being loved enough. I've been doing my personal work long enough that I might still flash back to that a little bit, feel a little bit of grief, but then my brain would kick into the positive flashback because I've been with my husband for 29 years as of today, and we still got way more life to go together, a lot more than the 18 years I was with my family not being hugged. So you see how I've created new neural pathways. I've done the work using tapping, and I really reinforce a new positive mindset, which allowed a positive emotional flashback to show up first with the ring. And I'm sharing this to give you just examples, right? So what happens when an emotional flashback disrupts our sleep? So now it's time to talk about sleep because, of course, these videos are all about sleep. I want you to get curious with yourself. When you're getting ready for bed, what kind of flashbacks are you having? When you're thinking about going to bed, are you having positive emotional flashbacks or negative emotional flashbacks? When you think about your work, when you think about your lifestyle, when you think about all of those, because we know that if you don't deal with your lifestyle, all of it will show up the minute you put your head on the pillow. Because if you haven't dealt with the stress of the day, they will come back at night. And so in the Better Sleep community, we really learn about the state of our nervous system. We learn about mindset, which is where we discover the thoughts and beliefs that are getting in the way of our sleep. And if we are brought back to the past every time we walk into our bedroom in a negative way, then of course we're going to have a hard time sleeping. What would it be like for you to learn how to use tapping, which is a tool that I teach in the Better Sleep community, to learn how to use tapping? So, tapping on the endpoint of these meridian lines that sends the calming signal to the amygdala that can then rewire the brain, create a new neural pathway that says, my bedroom actually is safe and I don't need to flash back to that. What if I could teach my brain to flash back to remembering sleeping so well? That is where it's important to understand emotional flashbacks, and they don't just happen to people who have PTSD, they happen to all of us. It's a natural part of life. That's why I wanted to create this video today. I hope I gave you hope that if you do have that happen to you, that you're normal, we all have them. We're able to create better sleep by yourself by becoming aware of our flashbacks and then doing something about it. So if you want to contact me, have any questions, please send an email at support@sleepsuccessacademy.com, and I look forward to helping you on your journey to better sleep.